Welcome to Caribbean Mystics Podcast,
where we marry mysticism, superstition, and lore. I'm your host, Paulina.
And I'm your host, Gabrielle, and we are your resident Caribbean mystics.
Join us today as we explore the depths of real supernatural stories
told by real people located right in our very own backyard.
Afia has always been attuned to the unseen, growing up on the island of St. John with the occasional presence of friendly ghosts. But one night, she awakens to an unsettling realization. Something is in her room with her. Though its form remains hidden and its presence silent, she senses that this entity is far from friendly.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Afia Smith. I am an ancestral St.Johnian. I belong to all the Samuels, Smiths, Marshes, Georges, Sprouls, you name it, right? And funny enough, actually, my grandmother, who's a Hendrix, was said to have practiced Coral Bay. I grew up in Coral Bay. I wouldn't really call Coral Bay a haunted space in the sense where people would normally associate it with, scary stuff. But given the past of Coral Bay on St. John, that's where we had the 1733 slave rebellion. And it could be said that there's a lot of spiritual beings that'll be around and about in Coral Bay. I used to see people all the time, and there were people that weren't even actually there. I never really used to engage with them or talk to them. It'd normally be about 6-10 feet away, and we'd just either be looking at each other or they would be walking and I would follow them. I'd usually end up in the bushes, or I might end up at a waterfront or something like that. But I never ever had any kind of scary occurrences or anything that made the hairs on my arms stand up until I got to the age of 10. And I had then moved to the Gift Hill area on St. John. I believe I was in 4th grade when I saw a little boy, and he looked like a little white boy. I'm not even gonna lie. He looked like a little white boy. He had on I wouldn't say a polo shirt and khaki pants, but that's what it looked like he had on. And he was bright. He was the color of a damn yellow highlighter. So I'm walking past the bathroom, and there's a big tree on the side of the bathroom that I'm walking past. He peeks at me from behind the tree, and then he waves at me to come and follow him. So I go and I follow him around the building, and by the time I find the corner, boom, he's gone. I think I probably met him 3 times until I got promoted and I had to go into 8th grade. After I left the school, I didn't see him anymore. There's an abandoned bathroom on East Benjamin Elementary School. I'm walking through the abandoned bathroom, and I peek inside this window, and there's nothing there. So I look away because somebody calls my name. And then I look back into the window, and there's just a head floating. Madly head. I couldn't tell if it was legs. I couldn't tell if the person hair just looked about nest. It was some kind of combination of something there. And it was a really, really old person. I can't really tell if it's a woman or a man, but I know that it's a really, really old person because it's the face is just completely wrinkly, and this head, and it's just floating there. I back up a little bit, I shake my head, And then I leaned back in. And by the time I was back to the window to where I could see it again, the head was gone. For the most part, all of the experiences that I've had since then, they've either been through dreams, an astral projection, or they've just been like shadows I'd see out the corner of my eye, and they'd either be moving shadows or they'd be stagnant shadows, just kind of sort of standing up in the distance and then disappearing after a few seconds. All of those experiences were pleasant, and I actually used to look forward to meeting more people and stuff like that just because of how pleasant said experiences were. So now fast forward to me moving into Gift Hill with my mom. That's kind of sort of where the encounter started to shift gears a little bit. It would make sense because apartments that are in the complex that I live in at Gift Hill was built on top of an Indian graveyard. So apparently, they found a few bones while they were digging. During the nights in the Gift Hill area that I live, once it's dark and there is no current, especially on a rainy night when it's really misty, oh my gosh. You feel like you walk outside and you have like 20 people staring, even though there's no one there. But that's literally what it feels like. Like nobody here likes to come out of their houses when current is gone and there's no light and it's misty and foggy and rainy. Like nobody does it. I want to say 8 months after we move into our new apartment. We liking it. It's feeling good and everything. I have my own bedroom, which was a fuss for me. But I guess that's why I get for being the only girl. Okay, the boys had to share. Oh well. Picture a weekend. Everybody got a bowl of popcorn and some ice cream because it was movie night. And of course, for whatever reason, that night we decided to watch Jeepers Creepers first. But there was another movie, which name I'm forgetting right now, that we watched after that. And it really, really freaked me out. Now, me, I grew up with a father who loved to watch scary movies. So for me, having the scary movies in my life from like since the time I was born, coupled with my supernatural experiences, like scary movies don't really necessarily do anything for me, you know? I mean, Jeepers Creepers is my classic. Nobody can say Jeepers Creepers ain't scary, but the second movie, not so much. So the boys are starting to fall asleep and I'm starting to feel sleepy. And because the boys are so long and we only have about like 2 couches in the house at the time, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go inside and sleep on my bed. I go inside my room and I fall asleep within 5 minutes. I'd say it was probably around 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. I was jerked up out of my sleep for absolutely no reason. I opened my eyes and my body was uncomfortable, but in my head, I just wanted to get back to sleep. I did my little like worm wiggle in bed. I pull up my covers a little bit more, and then I try to go back to sleep. Maybe 2 minutes later, after I was still up, facing the one side of my bedroom wall that had a window on it, I turn around and now I'm facing my closet door. And I always leave my closet door open. I turn around and I see the shadow standing up inside my closet. Now, again, my body is uncomfortable, but in my mind, I'm just like, oh my God, who decided to come in my room and play games right after we watch a scary movie? in my head, I'm like, okay, so one of my brothers decided to come in here and play games. I'm not paying attention to you. I will go back to sleep. It's late. So I turn around and I'm facing my bed wall again with the window on it. And I close my eyes to try to go to sleep for the second time. And it's like as soon as I turn around and I feel myself get settled and in a comfortable position, literally like all the hairs on my body start to rise up. And oh, my heartbeat start picking up a little bit more fast. So somebody is definitely in here. I'm uncomfortable at this point and he needs to leave. So I turn back around and I face my closet and the shadow is a little bit more out of the closet. And it's just like watching me. I go ahead and I said, dude, what's wrong with you? I want to go sleep. Like, leave me alone. Go outside. Close my eyes. Hands still raised. Blood still going a little bit quicker. And then, like, a little voice in my head just kind of sort of started saying, like, something wrong. You're on. Something wrong. So I opened my eyes again, really, really quick. As soon as I heard it, and the figure was even more out of the closet. Pick up one of my pillows and I throw it at the figure. The pillow bounces off of it and falls onto the floor, a little ways into the closet. And the figure throws its head back and laughs. It doesn't make a sound. I can't actually hear anything, but I can look and see the figure with its head back and the shoulders moving up and down, just laughing. I asked him, thinking again as my brother, asked him to trade back. He studied me, still laughing. I said, okay. I get up, I go, and as soon as I get to the spot where the figure was standing to pick up my pillow, it had not a soul there. My heart literally dropped to my ass. Oh, it's like if your hairs could stand times 2, that's exactly what what the hairs all over my body. Boom, full body and full a lot. Something wrong. Something ain't nice. Something is here. I went right up to the bedroom light, turn it on. I look around my room, saw that there was really, really, really nothing there. Went back to my bed, pick up 2 pillows on my sheet, closed my bedroom door with the light on, went outside in the living room, see that all of my brothers were still there, knocked out. I was just like, wow. Open my parents' bedroom door to peek in, the both of them in the sleeping. I said, okay. Now, normally, if this was any other encounter that I was used to, I would have gone back inside my room and sleep. But because of the reaction that I had to this specific being, entity, whatever you want to refer to it as, I was like, I am not sleeping by myself and I am not sleeping in that room. So I left my bedroom light on the entire night and I went and I slept with my brothers in the living room. I was just like, I cannot go back inside the room by myself right now. I'm actually scared. I've never been scared before. And that was the very first time that I ever got scared when dealing with that entity.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 2, season 3 of Caribbean Mystics podcast.
Whoop whoop.
Yeah.
Back again. I am your hostess, Gabrielle.
And I am Paulina, and I was thinking maybe we should mention our last names.
Oh yeah, Gabrielle Carrard.
Paulina Creaky. And the reason I say that too is because I remember in the beginning when we did our intros, you're like, I think it sounds more professional. And I'm like, I think it sounds cooler, just like our names. But the more I'm into it, the more I listen to more podcasts, everybody says their last name. I'm like, why are we being so cryptic?
Correct. Okay. I like it. And I usually say my last name, but I don't know. I feel like it felt familiar, like, hey, friend, is Gabby.
Yeah.
But I get it. And I think that makes sense, especially since we have such a diverse viewership from all over the world. So
Yeah, and
name
maybe they want to
recognition is
Google.
important.
Maybe they
Yeah.
want to find your handles, So,
Yes.
anyways, welcome to the show. Gabby actually produced this one. Round of
Thank you.
applause. I want to get
But
like a little effect board and have like sound effects for like.
and have the audience and stuff. So while I produced it, so after season 2 was finished, Paulina posted a status that went viral on our local VI Facebook pages, and it was like on what's going on St. Thomas. And it was simply just asking for paranormal stories that had happened in the territory specifically. And that post got over 400 comments.
Wow.
And we had so much like stories just kind of flowing into the post. And then we ended up, having to reach out to a lot of these people because there were people that were writing some really crazy stuff. And one of the people that commented, Afia, is actually, that's how we got this story. And even the way that she wrote it when we read it, it was so creepy and strange that we just knew that we had to make sure it was involved in the next season. So here we are.
I felt like her personality really shone through in the comment too, because when we actually interviewed her, she was just so like jokey and just so down to earth. And I loved her personality. She was great. And me and Gabby the whole time, Gabby, you're like, can you tell that a little bit more scary? Like, can you like,
no,
not
because
laugh?
Afia's in the middle of telling her story, and she's like, yeah. So this like dark figure was standing up in my closet, and I just knew that it couldn't be any of my brothers. Isn't that crazy? And we're here like, oh wow, God, that is crazy. But like for the sake of the entertainment factor that we try to strike, I'm gonna need you to circle that back around. And so even in the editing, if you guys listen to the story close, you can actually hear where we had to cut out Afia's laughter because she had such a great time, and I love that too. And it's nice to have the story itself is creepy, but Afia had such a lighthearted, I think, relationship and perspective toward her experience that I think it actually helps us this season, especially coming off of the heels of the last episode. And we have some really dark episodes this season.
Oh, yeah.
So now I'm deeply grateful for Afia's,
lightheartedness.
a key in, because it helped to bring a little bit more light into our season, because this season is rough.
This is gonna be a good season. I'm like really loving these stories, man. We love our storytellers too. When we meet you guys and we talk to you and interview you, like I'm a total nerd for it. I'm like, tell me more. But
Paulina be asking these people all their business and like does such a good job because she'll ask questions that I don't even consider. And it really does help to like shape the story in a way that I think really is a strength to Paulina.
Oh, thank you. We go down the rabbit hole. Yeah, I'm like, tell me your life story. How'd your parents meet? Like, how were you born?
What your grandmother maiden name was? Like literally deep into the trenches. But that's why the stories are so amazing, because it's just like they're packed with so much detail, which I think is really helpful. There's so much context, and Afia's story gave a lot of context because you got her earliest experiences, encountering these ghosts, and they were lighthearted experiences. So she developed almost like a, like I look forward to seeing that, and I look forward to these interactions.
I think it's funny with the lightheartedness and the laughingness. It's made me like, okay, so, and I'm sure you notice this too, VI people, and maybe other people in the Caribbean too, I can't see for sure. We have this tendency to laugh at really scary things. Like, I remember going to see, what's that horror movie back in, I'm showing my age here. It was a while ago. It was called like The Tooth Fairy. I remember seeing it in the theaters, or Darkness, and going to a movie theater, seeing a scary movie in St. Thomas is probably going to be the most enjoyable time of your life. because
Yeah.
everybody is like laughing and cracking up. This girl is like dying on the floor, like, save me! Like
Yeah.
the slasher films,
Yeah.
everybody's laugh. It's hilarious. So I
And you'll
think
hear
it's like a
somebody in the
defense.
background.
Yeah,
Yeah, you'll hear somebody in the theater be like, nobody ain't tell you to follow man. That's what you get. And so it really cuts
yes.
through the like ambiance of like the fair and which honestly it sometimes annoys me because when I go to the movie theater, I am going to experience that.
Yeah.
And then when I show up and I see my people, I'm always just like, please, you let's behave because I don't come to the movies often, and this is
No,
my chance to like,
there's
have
no
the
behavior.
experience.
No
No,
behavior in a movie theater.
no,
So, but I
no.
also think it's like kind of a defense mechanism too. Laughter.
Yeah,
When we see something that's uncomfortable, scary, and we don't know how to react, a lot of people laugh and smile at the situation. And
yeah,
I think it's also funny because this entity also had a sense of humor as well.
yeah. Oh yeah, that's true. It sure
Mm.
was laughing.
So
uh
let's go into the story. Let's start at the top, right? The beginning.
yeah. So the story takes place on St. John, and a part of the story is Afia giving us a little bit of backdrop. She's talking about the 1733 slave rebellion that took place on the island. And I wanted to give a little bit of context to that because we actually have another story or another two stories possibly coming out of St. John this season. And I think that this would be helpful to like lay the groundwork for you guys to understand the energies at play on this particular island. So in 1733, St. John had a slave rebellion. At that point in time, the Danish West Indies was fully in the throes of the slave trade, and they were bringing in enslaved people, by the thousands. And to be honest, St. Thomas was used as such a staging port for the entire region that a lot of enslaved people would be brought to St. Thomas and then they would be siphoned off to the other islands. So, like a, a plantation owner from St. Kitts may have traveled to St. Thomas, or, a plantation owner from Anguilla may have traveled to St. Thomas during one of um, their, what is it called? I can't remember it, but one of the auctions, right? So they would come to St. Thomas for these slave auctions, and they would essentially take their purchases of enslaved people back to their islands. And so St. John had about 109 plantations on it
Wow.
by 1733. And most
Can
of, yeah,
just quickly, can we add in to our
sure.
listeners that are not familiar with St. John and how tiny this island is and
Oh, yeah.
how that's a
St.
shit
John,
ton of plantations for
it's
such
a
a
lot.
small island.
It's 21 square miles. And while it's 21 square miles, like this slave rebellion is like really actually important to like the
Mhm.
history of the Caribbean, as well as the history of the Danish West Indies, which is now present day the Virgin Islands. But at that point in time, sugar was like a major crop coming out of the Danish West Indies. And there's a really dishonest myth that Danes were a lot nicer to their enslaved populations. But the reality is that they were actually one of the most cruelest groups of slave owners in the region. And with the island of St. John being as small as it is, it had limited resources. So you had plantation owners that owned plantations, but they lived in St. Thomas. So they relied on overseers to oversee their plantation and the everyday affairs that was taking place on the plantation. And so there was a lot of cruelty at the hands of the overseer toward the enslaved population. Another part of the conversation that's really important is that at one point, St. John had over 1,000 enslaved people, and there were only 200 colonizers. So there was already a huge difference in population that lent itself to what would eventually be considered one of the first successful slave rebellions in the Western Hemisphere. One of the important parts of this story is that at the point in time that it took place, there was a drought that had happened, a severe hurricane. And so a lot of enslaved people were running away from their plantations because there simply wasn't enough resources to ensure that they stayed enslaved, but also there wasn't enough food, there wasn't enough water. And the plantation owners, of course, put themselves and their families first when it came to receiving these very high sought after resources. So anyway, the enslaved people came together, about 150 enslaved people came together. They were from the Aquamo tribe in Ghana. Please excuse my pronunciation. But they ended up capturing the island, and they held control of the island of St. John for 6 months. And it took multiple European nations and militaries to surround the island and eventually quell the rebellion. And after that, the cruelty toward the enslaved people just got so much more worse, and they were dealing with some of the harshest laws in the Caribbean and the United States for enslaved populations. So it was rough.
Wild.
But it's a testament to the energy of St. John. So St. John has a very strong undercurrent of ancestral energy. And not just with the enslaved inhabitants of the island, but also the indigenous inhabitants. St. John also has the petroglyphs, which is these beautiful rock carvings that the indigenous people carved and etched into this wall. And later on in this season, we're actually going to have a really cool story about the Tainos that lived on the island. And I think at that point, I'll go into the story of the petroglyphs. But the energy of St. John is very much deeply connected to revolution and resistance, as well as there was a lot of bloodshed and there was a lot of pain. And at the ending of the rebellion, after the 6 months, when the colonial powers came back into play, a lot of enslaved people chose to jump off of Mary's Point and take their life versus going back into servitude or even facing death at the hands of the colonizers. So St. John has a really, really strong history for such a small island. It's very rich, and it's very nuanced, right? And so when Afia is talking about, she's explaining about the island, she also talks about the Indian burial ground. All throughout the Caribbean, we had different groups of indigenous peoples that moved through our islands. So we have, in St. Croix, there was a large Carib population. We had the Siboneyes, we had the Tainos, we have Arawaks. And it's believed that they originally came from South America and they moved their way up the island chain throughout the years and the centuries. But I'm not surprised that St. John has so much paranormal activity because, again, this is such an influx of energy in this space, and it's an array of energy. And so some of it is light energy, and it's very healing, and it's very potent. And then some of the energy is still deeply shrouded in pain. And not to mention, St. Johnians are disenfranchised to this day, with the existence of the national park owning over, 3/4 of the island?
75% around.
Yeah,
right?
St. Johnians are fighting tooth and nail to even be able to stay in their ancestral homes. And everyone looks at St. John, who isn't from here, and they're like, oh, what a beautiful island place to move to. And so you have a lot of rich people that are moving to St. John. And unfortunately, they come with their bad habits, their overexploitation of the land, their lack of regard for the local population, and honestly, in a lot of ways, downright racism. So it's made it a lot harder for St. Johnians to exist in their native lands, which I know is the story for a lot of the Caribbean. But when you have a really small island, they are facing such a large detriment of destabilization and the eventual just degradation of their population size.
It's such a striking difference. As somebody who grew up right in the VI and then is living in the States now as an adult, when I come back down to visit family and we go to St. John for the day, it is such a striking it just takes me aback of how different the island looks from the moment you step off the ferry and enter, Cruise Bay. I'm like, where did all these condos come from? This island is so small. It's so tiny, like the harbor too. It's just bombarded and cluttered with like villas and condos and people that are not from there. And I'm not trying to like be like, hey, like you're not welcome here kind of vibe, but it doesn't look like our island anymore. It doesn't look like the Virgin Islands. You walk there and it looks like Margaritaville. It looks like Kenny Chesney. It looks like Jimmy Buffett. And it's just bars blasting like country music and people drinking and then there's this one like beautiful church right in the middle amidst of all this drinking and bars and modern day gentrification, like colonization. Sorry, I'm skipping my words. And it's very sad to see because you see a lot of ancestral and local people just trying to go to church, trying to do their daily routines, living, and they're amidst this. It's like chaotic. It's kind of chaotic walking into that. It's very saddening to see it happen.
And it's hard because it's just like the Virgin Islands was labeled America's paradise. And so it makes Americans feel entitled to our spaces. And, I've been saying this thing all year, and I'm going to continue to say it, that we have a habit of seeing beautiful things and wanting to possess them. We can't just look at a beautiful thing, admire its beauty, and be like, I hope that this beauty gets to remain the same for the rest of my life, right? We have to own a piece of it. And I definitely feel like it's a part of that American ideal.
Dream, yeah.
Yeah, where it's just like you view land as something to be owned, right? Everything is a very capitalistic perspective, and you view things through the lens of, like, I could own a villa over here and I love how natural over here is. So let me just rip up the hillside and build a villa, and then I can put people to live in the villa. And then I can extract resources, and then I could use those resources to fund my seasonal trip to Aspen with my family. And so the local population just continues to get disenfranchised. But I don't want to take you down that road because I could talk about this for hours.
Yeah. We cleared the table with that discussion. You guys came here for the spooks, okay? Not the politics. Maybe it's of interest, though. And we, as people that are from there, we just kind of like want to put our 2 cents in, our 50 cents. All right, so let's go on to Afia's story. She sprinkled in little stories that happened throughout her life growing up, right? She's seen that little white boy ghost that appears at school that's like, come follow me, comes around the corner, it's gone. And then comes movie night with her family, which I love.
Oh, wait, you forgot the part with the Mowgli head.
That's
the word Mowgli. When she used the word Mowgli, I was like, wow, I haven't heard it. Like, I think I've only heard this term once ever in my life.
I have not.
And I know exactly what she was describing. Like, literally, I know exactly what she's describing. So, Mowgli, in my understanding, is like unkept, right? It's old, it's decrepit. It would be like the equivalent of somebody you remember in Harry Potter where
Hermione. Oh, sorry.
Wait, what were you gonna say about
I
Hermione?
thought you were talking her hair.
No. You see those ghosts that used to be going through the Great Hall, and their hair used to be kind of like, helter skelter.
Okay.
And they, like their heads decrepit, and they had, you had the one head that was falling off the body. And you had like these deformed looking, ghosts based off of how they died.
Yes.
When she's described Mowgli, I immediately thought about Harry Potter, or even the heads in the 5th book, where it was like these like shrunken heads that are inside of the bus as the bus is driving with Harry Potter.
Oh, that's right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when she was talking about his Mowgli head, those were some of the images that were coming up. She was basically talking about old, decrepit, unkept, just looks grungy. That's what
Yeah,
she's describing.
that's wild, man.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the movie night.
Oh, yeah.
So I didn't connect, and I must have missed the detail that she's 10 years old when this happens. But who watches Jeepers Creepers at 10 years old? I can't. And she's like, I don't get affected by that shit. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Well, that goes back to our movie theater ambiance here in the Virgin
True.
Islands. It's like you'll go to a rated R horror movie and cheering will be all through there. But because you have parents that are like yelling at the screen, that's what you get for following man. It really creates a lighthearted, jubilant experience. And so I'm not surprised she was watching Jeepers Creepers because she was with her older brothers.
True.
But I also think that I'm sure that the experience of watching those horror movies opened the door for her to have the experience she had later in the night.
Yeah. So what do you mean by that? Did you want to go into
Yeah.
something in there, or did you have? Because
Yeah,
I
so
know
I
you
was
said.
reading.
Mhm. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was reading this. I was doing research and I wanted to figure out the connection because I've always heard this where you'd heard like the elders be like, oh, stop watching all of these horror movies and this that, and the other because you're opening up, like you're opening up portals or you're opening up a way for these things to come into your life. And so I wanted to see if there was any truth to that because usually with the elders, there might be a little bit of smoke and fire, but it's always, there's some truth to what they're talking about. And I saw this guy and I thought this guy made a post on Reddit and I thought his sentiments were really interesting because I'd never considered it. But he was talking about how he perceives horror movies to be the heavy metal, to be the equivalent, of heavy metal music. In that they have the capacity to elicit a certain frequency. So when you're watching scary movies, they're using music that has low frequencies because these are the frequencies that make you energetically feel unsettled. Honestly, in a lot of our frequencies we use for Caribbean mystics, it's also low frequencies because we want to stir the emotion. We want to get the reader invested and involved in the imagery that the reader or the storyteller is sharing. But when you are watching something like Jeepers Creepers, which is all violent and all scary and all paranormal, coupled with those low frequencies, and then after they had watched another movie, I think that it isn't usually the case where you'll open a pathway for something to come through. But I do think that in rare circumstances, when it lines up, when the astrology is right, when the right time of the night comes, I think that there are certain ways in which we can unlock doors for entities to walk through. And I think that that's kind of what Afia experienced that night. And I'm a lover of scary movies. I watched The Conjuring last week. I think that the circumstances have to be damn near perfect for there to be that transferal of energy. But I do think that it absolutely happens.
So it's funny that you mention this music with the lower frequencies because, like, I don't know if you've ever heard of like the diabolus in musica, like the devil's chord. It's kind of like
Oh, I've heard of the Devil's Chord. But tell
yeah.
the people.
So I don't know exactly if this because I just thought of it, so I was quickly like researching it. I don't know exactly, but there's always like those rumors that there's these chords that you can't play that used to be hanged for that kind of the shit. And I think that's actually a fact that it was banned. It just was never really allowed to be played in the church because it would emit like this tone and it was associated with the devil. And it's just interesting you mentioned that. And it has a lot to do with like it's like a certain triad of chords, right? Oh God, I'm a music major and I'm like talking bleh. But a lot of that music is also like minor chords and diminished chords. And those chords, when you play them out, they definitely have that feel to them.
Yeah.
Aside from the music, I'm going to validate what you are talking about, this effect of like what is attracting this. And it's so funny that we magically are talking about the same subject. You're going more into the spiritual realm of it and the mystique, and I'm going into like the scientific realm because there's something actually called the hitchhiker effect. It's pretty much this effect that happens to you after you watch a scary movie or tell a scary story or are around some kind of paranormal phenomenon, like maybe you see a UFO, you see something, and it follows you home, essentially. And it acts like a virus. It's something that can spread to the next person, to the next person. And maybe we're doing that right now to you listeners, taking it home with you. But anyways, it's something called a hitchhiker effect. These guys were on like Skinwalker Ranch, and they actually studied a group of people that experienced paranormal phenomenon on the ranch. As a result to studying these groups of people, they noticed that they would report having sightings back home when they went back home. They would see things, hear things, extreme things, and then an even smaller percent of that group actually had biological and physical effects to their bodies that would happen. They would, the people that they investigated, it was a small number, but it was high enough to be like, to ring alarms. Like, why is only this small group of people that have experienced something paranormal starting to get autoimmune diseases like Hashimoto's thyroiditis, Sjögren's syndrome, I'm pronouncing that terrible, lupus, Graves' disease, and more. And what's common about this is that they're all blood diseases. And this is just a theory out there, but we talk about how entities and these other figures move and work with energy, right? Like electricity. Blood is essentially a form of energy throughout the human body. And so I just think it's like very odd how they're working with the blood. Apparently, this is a thing that actually happens, and they coined the term hitchhiker effect. So be careful what you watch.
Yeah, I believe that 1,000%. And as you were talking, I was thinking too, like when you're watching these scary movies, and if you are a mystic and you've been here for season 1 and season 2, you guys know that Paulina and I consistently talk about how fair is like an attractor for entities. So I think one of the ways in which these entities are able to come into your life is the fare that's elicited when you're watching the movies. And so there may have been fare, even if it was just minor, because Afia and her family, seem to be fareless in some regard. But I wonder if there was enough fare in the home watching the movies that almost triggered the attraction of a nearby entity, right? Because we always have entities all around us. And I think that sometimes they come and they have reasons for coming, like whether it's through malice or anything like that. And I think that sometimes they come because they're curious, which we saw in season 1, episode 2 with Angelica and her son. But I definitely think that there was a series of the right circumstances. It was like the perfect storm that allowed this entity to manifest itself in her closet. And it came to herself. Her specifically.
Yeah, I was going to say, and herself, from her history with this, it seems like she's probably a sensitive. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
she may have been the youngest. Yeah. So she's sensitive, she's young, and children are so susceptible to these energies. And I was doing research on that as well. And I saw that between the ages of 6 and 7 and then down, it is super common for children to have these supernatural paranormal encounters. Because at that point in time, their brains are at the developmental stage where they're susceptible. And as they approach adulthood and their brains continue to develop, the imagination side of their brain almost gets a little bit smaller to make space for all of the other development that's taking place. And so as they get older, they lose a lot of that sensitivity. I also think that there are children that are specially born with sensitivity. So regardless of their age, they are going to have these paranormal experiences. But I think that within that certain bracket of age between like 1 and 7, I think that's when a lot of their experiences are the most heightened because they're the most open, but also biologically, their brain is at a place where their imagination is the most active it'll ever be.
I was just about to say imagination takes a seat when it comes to paranormal or supernatural. And you can say, like, oh, it's just my imagination. But where does your imagination come from? I feel like it's almost a gateway for a divine or universe or
Yep.
God or whatever.
Yep.
The idea fairy, we all have it. Where do ideas come from? They come from somewhere like outside of us. They kind
Yeah.
of just like
Or your
pop in.
consciousness.
Yeah. Or subconsciousness. But this imagination I think plays a role with the paranormal side. But the ghost in the closet, can we just go over that? Because
That was so creepy because I feel like it's every child's worst nightmare, either in the closet or under the bed.
yeah, these are such like typical themes, especially for kids. Like there's a monster under my bed, there's a monster in the closet. And
Yeah.
I mean, looking at it from just a basic standpoint, it's a dark, scary, enclosed space. Under the bed, you're sleeping right on top of it. And those stories and the theme is just so repetitive. Like we hear it in lots of stories. The ghost in the closet struck a chord for me because, and I believe I told this story on like season 1, but you know, I had an experience with something in a closet. And I shared this bedroom with my brother, and I slept on the side of the room that was facing the closet door. It at times like it was just open. It was one of those like foldable doors. And I just have like this memory, like this image in my head, and I'm closing my eyes to like kind of take me back of me laying with the covers up to my neck and just seeing the silhouette of a large man, and his head would be touching the top of the closet door. He was dressed in like a trench coat and a hat, but he would just be all black. And I did not connect the dots until recently, like maybe the last 2 years, that I'm describing the infamous Hat Man. And I had no
Who's the
fucking
devil
clue.
himself. Just let me know,
Stop telling me that.
they say that the Hat Man is the literal living incarnation of the devil himself.
I can't, because I always heard the Hat Man. I was like, oh, that sounds so creepy. And this memory, which was so stored away in my subconscious, to this day, like I had no idea why I slept certain ways until I questioned myself. Because as an adult, why do I still sleep, no matter how hot it is, when a cover is all the way up to my neck? Why do I have to have every door in the room closed, especially the bathroom door and the closet door? It's almost to the point where it's obsessive. Like Spencer leaves early in the mornings, and when he leaves like a crack of the closet open, I get up. I don't care how tired I am. It's 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. I get up and I have to close it. I cannot to this day have it open. And I'm like, why am I like this? And then that memory like popped back into my head, and I was like, holy shit, like this stemmed from something.
Yeah.
This stemmed from seeing this creepy shit in my room. And even sleeping with the covers up there, I just remember images like of something poking me at night, like poking at my stomach, poking at my body. And I would sleep with the covers up there because I couldn't stand whatever it was touching me. And I like really repressed, forgot about those memories. But the closet man, to this day, it's still, I can't have open closet doors. I can't.
I get it. I don't leave them open either. I feel like Afia's story rings to be very connected to the fears that children, like, and you said it perfectly. The closet is a dark space. It's enclosed, and in the nighttime, it has the capacity to cast shadows because of just the nature of a closet, its size, door open, door closed. I think the part of the story that was the most creepy for me is that this entity like put his head back and laughed when she threw the pillow at it.
Absolutely. Abso-fucking-lutely. She interacted
Like,
with this thing, and this thing interacted back.
Like, it was almost like it, for me, it felt like a challenge. For me, it was just like, I am not going anywhere unless I will it.
For me,
Like, you,
sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
For me, it incited the thought of the trickster archetype. That's so infamous. It's he's just seen throughout all literature in every culture from like ancient times, like all the way back in the day, like this trickster sort of theme that happens and that
In the
laugh.
Caribbean, it would be like the Anansi spider.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And he is behind, he's the gray area, right? He's not like the
Yeah.
full evil and he's not the full good. He's like that right in between that can lead you to your hero or like your downfall. But
Absolutely.
yeah, that part of the story for real, no joke. And she got up and had to go sleep with her brother. It's like,
Correct. I think the notion of the gray area is really interesting, and I actually think it's going to be a theme this season where we have stories that I think really challenge us to consider morality, right? And human morality.
mm,
And like the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And so you're right, like that entity. And I think that that also makes it in its own way even more scary because it's just like it's the wolf in sheep's clothing, like you don't
mhm.
quite know
You think you're
where
doing
it
good,
stands.
and then that's where the trickster gets you, right? That's the
Yeah,
theme of it. Like you think you're doing good, but it's tricking you. Like it stays in your subconscious. You think you're doing this amazing thing to help people, but whoops. Oh gosh, Gabby, like I know where you're getting this from for this upcoming episode. We're gonna
let me tell you, Paulina and I record an episode that's probably,
it's at the
in my
top.
opinion, it's the I I will say that it is the most incredible
Obscure.
and disturbing story
Mm-hmm.
that we have ever gotten. It'll be coming out on Halloween, because
Absolutely.
we like the drama, so we're gonna bring it out on Halloween. But I think
Still
it,
figuring out how to present it to you
yeah,
guys because there's a lot of iffy information around it. And I think that's what makes it even more intriguing, the story.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But it's a good one. Oh my gosh. Like I was at the edge of my seat as this person was telling the story to us. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
wait, you know what? You
Yeah.
that
What happened? You had to do what?
and
No, it's
we're not disclosing too much because we kind of just want to like surprise you
yeah,
and also figure out what we're actually going to share with you guys because man, it's a very triggering episode though. We're definitely going to have a lot of trigger warnings because it touches on very taboo subjects and controversial subjects.
yeah,
But I think it's
for
important.
sure.
It's important to share these things. I don't believe in uh censoring everything off. Like what kind of yeah, I don't. I think it's important to share these kind of stories regardless of the content. Well, I feel like we've talked a good amount about this episode, and I want to thank
I agree.
Afia for coming on and sharing it. We love our storytellers. We love our listeners. We recently got this email from one of our listeners, and she was so friggin' sweet, man. She just kind of gushed over our show, and like, I feel like me and Gabrielle like blushed about it. At least I did. I was like blushing when I
I
read
did.
that. I was like, oh
It
my
was so
gosh.
sweet.
It's your
Yeah.
reviews, you guys. We read your reviews too, and it really like I have no words. I am speechless.
Yeah.
But it's so good
It
to
means a
hear.
lot.
It really is. Keeps us
It
going.
means a lot. And the story, sometimes people share really like, they talk about how much it means to them, right? To be able to um have a place where we can document these stories, where we can have these discussions. It connects the diaspora, like we were saying earlier, which is really important in a time where a lot of us have had to leave our homes for a variety of reasons. But we love home deeply and we want to feel connected. So just it's a privilege to be able to create this podcast And if you would like to leave a review and a 5-star rating, we would be incredibly grateful. And we always love the emails that you guys send. So if ever you want to send us an email, we would absolutely love to hear from you. And you can find all of this information in the show notes.
Yeah, man, we love you guys.
We do.
And I love that you pointed out because, this girl, she mentioned how both of her parents are from the Caribbean, but she didn't grow up in the Caribbean. And the show kind of like gave her a little connection back. So we hear you guys, we see you guys. I myself, I grew up there, but I don't live there anymore. And it's very disheartening, but shit happens. Not every Caribbean person lives in the Caribbean anymore, but it doesn't change who you are. You could take the girl off the island, but
you can't take the island or the girl.
Yes, exactly.
Yep. And Paulina may come back home one day. It's my hope.
Me too, man. Like, we actually did try looking for a house, but of course, like, Gabby knows all about this. It ties back around to what we were discussing before, you guys. So, yeah, a lot of displacement. But either way.
Yep. Thank you for joining us this episode.
Yeah,
it's always a pleasure.
And we hope you guys have a beautiful week. And see you next Thursday.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you for listening to Caribbean Mystics Podcast.
If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to share with your family and friends. Like, follow, and subscribe to keep up with all of our spooky Caribbean content.
Do you have a story you'd like to share that took place in the Caribbean? Email us at caribbeanmysticspodcast@gmail.com. That's caribbeanmysticspodcast@gmail.com. Or check the show notes for more info.
Caribbean Mystics is created and hosted by Paulina Creaky and Gabrielle Carrard. Theme song is Folktale Jouvert Riddim by Marcano.